What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and it is match reaction time. We've just come away from beating the Eagles by 43 points, and I've got a lot of thoughts, both good and not so good. Let's put it out there. This was probably one of the worst 43-point wins you'll perhaps ever see a team play. Or not even worst, but most contested, most competitive 43-point wins you're ever going to see. I want to begin by actually acknowledging West Coast, who are absolutely fantastic and really took advantage of the opportunities that came their way. They didn't have nearly as many of them as the Cats did. And I'm sure, and I'm going in a little bit blind here, but I'm sure when I look at some of the team stats, it will highlight the fact that they took advantage of some of those opportunities. But there, massive congratulations to the Eagles. They actually played a pretty damn good game despite that final margin. It was a final quarter blowout from the Cats, which obviously the final quarters are well documented. It's Geelong's strength. This is also a young Eagles team, and they started to run over the top of them. The likes of Jeremy Cameron really started to rise in that final quarter, and the likes of Ruben Jinby, who'd done a fantastic job on him up to that point, started to wilt. But anyway, let's start to get into the game a little bit here. As I alluded to a moment ago, the Cats beating the Eagles 17-14, 116 to the Eagles 11-7, 73. Some efficiency from the Eagles, especially in the first half, that kept them in it more so than perhaps they actually were. Geelong not necessarily taking advantage of opportunities earlier on the game that they could have, but then, as I mentioned, a final quarter blowout that finally put the margin well beyond something that West Coast could reach. We'll get into the game in full detail right after a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's look at the worm here to tell the story of this match. And you can actually see that, Geelong piled it on pretty early on in that second quarter, but then it was basically a run of about 5 or so. Like, the Eagles kicked 5 goals to 4 in the second term, and Geelong didn't then really push on like they could have and should have in the third that kept the Eagles in it. That early goal and a missed opportunity in the final term then gave them a real sniff. Where's that behind? That behind here from Noah Long. That could have put them within a point. Proved to be costly for the Eagles because then the Cats piled it all on from that point onwards, kicking the majority of the remaining goals there to come away 43-point winners. But really, Geelong played a really interesting game. We'll talk about, I guess, the actual strategy behind it before we wrap this one up. But let's get into some stats here and hopefully tell a bit of a tale of the tape. The Cats leading the disposal count, the kick count. The Eagles tried to play a very Richmond of the early, I guess a Dim Hardwick inspired game here, a high handball game, which is certainly something that's brought the Cats, given the Cats some trouble over the years, I guess, as we all as Cats fans know. It was a bit of a worry there for a while as they kind of handball chained their way out of defense, or through our midfield at different stages. It's still something that as a club, we still haven't quite gotten our head around. It's almost as though Chris Scott tried to wait out the wave that was Richmond back in the late 2010s and early 2020s. Only for a whole bunch of other coaches who've been inspired or worked with Dimmer over the years to then go and execute the same plan. So we've got to find a way to, I guess, overcome it, because structurally we seem to have issues with it. And I think it's a major structural concern more than anything else. No, the Eagles probably weren't going to beat us. There might be a bunch of other teams that are still developing that have got this sort of DNA as well, who potentially aren't going to challenge us. But there are clubs who've got pretty decent lists, including Dimmer Hardwicks, who are going to play next week, who do play this game plan really well and might cause us some serious headaches. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's move on here. Inside 50 is heavily in favour of the Cats. Disposal efficiency in favour of the Cats. Efficiency inside 50 in favour of the Cats. I'm actually surprised, given what I said before, that this figure is actually lower than the Eagles' average, and as low as it is, because the Eagles really took advantage of some opportunities, especially through Oscar Allen in the first half. We did clamp down on him a bit more in the second half. In particular, he really got away from us in the second quarter there. He didn't even get away from us. The delivery to him was just excellent. And he got on the end of a few and managed to kick a few goals, which was fantastic for a bloke who's been struggling this year and has had to go through quite a lot. I've nuffed him this year. There's been a whole bunch of challenges that he's faced. It was good for him to get on the end of them. Not so much against the Cats, but anyway. I'm a little bit surprised that percentage is as low as it is for the Eagles, but we persist. The free kick count, nothing really to see here. Hitouts, Reece Stanley did a great job against Matt Flynn. The clearance count, we still managed to lose the clearance count against the bottom place team. Their stoppage clearance game, though, it's actually kind of reversed because we tend to be beaten at the centre clearance and then win out at the stoppage clearance. It shows that the likes of Harley Reid and some of those young up-and-coming guys who don't necessarily spend as much time in the actual guts for the main centre bounce are getting it done around the ground. That shows that the development for them is headed in the right direction. And this centre clearance count, that will develop for them in time. I am shocked, though, that we actually lost that one. Here we are. Possession, a lot of that kind of mirrors what we saw with disposals at the top. So possession, favouring the Cats, uncontested favouring the Eagles, barely. Turnovers, not necessarily surprised. Young, experienced team. And Geelong brought a lot of pressure. Now, say what you want about the margin and the fact that it was close at different stages, but Geelong's pressure rating was through the roof on a number of occasions, especially through the first half. It was really intense, and it was really, really hard for the Eagles to work their way through it. So that's going to result in more turnovers. Not more than average, which is perhaps a little bit surprising. But again, I think because the Eagles played a very handball-happy game, I guess the degree of error is a little bit slimmer than missed kicks. Possession, heavily favouring the Cats there. We certainly held the ball, and I think wisely at different points where the Eagles got some momentum, Geelong very wisely just slowed it down a bit, retained the ball, kick mark, just to nip some of that pace in the bud, especially through the second and third quarters when they really needed to. But you even saw it for a little while there early in the fourth until we got the slingshot going. Marks, that kind of reflects that point, contested marks, everything looking great in that regard, scoring, fairly well documented. Tackles, great. As I mentioned, defensive pressure, the pressure was high. Tom Atkins leading from the front, again with 10 tackles. We'll bring up the individual numbers shortly. Tackles inside 50, also fantastic. Geelong doing what Geelong does so well, which is locking the ball inside 50 once it arrives. The rest of the stats here, not necessarily a huge amount to tell. Let's get to some individual player figures. We'll focus on our Cats for a bit. Bailey Smith had 25 at halftime, was pretty well held in the second half. The tag went to him, give him a little bit of extra attention, but that allowed the likes of Max Holmes to get off the leash. So there was always constant midfield threats, especially in terms of speed coming through either Smith or Holmes. It was stunning to see that Bailey Smith had as much as 21 early in the second quarter. I think only a few minutes in, he was up to 21. He was really causing the Eagles some problems early. He did get held much better through the late second quarter and into the second half, but still was pretty effective for us. 38 disposals, Max Holmes with 27, Grind Myers with 26 and 2 goals. Another really great game from Grind. Connor O'Sullivan returned and played a really great intercepting game. I think he was leading the ground for intercept possessions. Mitch Duncan was really important, especially in the first half, but also in points in the final quarter there. His kicking, his greatest asset. I keep talking about this week after week after week and why he is still so important to the Cats. His kicking when he is up and about and when he's injury-free is so important. And he set up quite a few in that last quarter, really important ones, especially to Jeremy Cameron. Tom Stewart just continuing to work his way back into the season. It was good to see. Tyson Stengel was really busy, and it was good to see him get some reward for effort. There, I'd imagine, if I quickly flick across and have a look, I'd imagine there are some goal assists and several score involvements there from him as well. 7 score involvements. Goal assists probably would have been on the other page, actually. Goal assists. Let me sort by disposals again and then go back to goal assists. Tyson Stengel with 3 of them. Yeah, he was really, really important around goals. So 2 goals, 1, 3 goal assists, 7. I think I saw score involvements. A fantastic effort from him. Sean Manor was busy. Not the most standout of games he's played, but he was really busy and important at different stages. Mark O'Connor, there's very much a team effort sort of thing here. I've got no real concerns around the players with the low disposal count. Ollie Henry continuing to work his way back into it. Would have liked like to see him get 1 or 2 more, but he was also important in terms of goal assists. And then I'm pretty sure when I look at score involvements, certainly the eye test said he was really important in that respect as well. And yes, everyone watching, I am coming to Ollie Henry's defense here because I think he has a lot to offer still. That said, I'm scrolling down and I'm not seeing where is he? Ollie Henry's 3 score involvements. Not as high as I would have thought, but I guess I'm not 100% sure on what constitutes every single version of a score involvement. The one that I think there's, I think reasonably sort of questions about after having a sensational big breakout week last week is the 1 goal to Shannon Neal. I think there was more opportunities for him to really thrive in this one. The ball didn't necessarily make its way to him. He wasn't the focal point as much as he perhaps was last week. So I guess I can understand it to an extent. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more. Also would have liked to have seen a little bit more game time for Ted Closey to really shine and do what he does so well. But for the time he was on the ground, he was really, really valuable at the coalface. Honestly, there's not much to complain about here when we actually look at the numbers. My big concern around this game, as I quickly scroll back to our summary, is Geelong's persistence in this one with the kind of slingshot fast-acting game, which nearly came back to bite us and I think it's the weakness to the handball game of the opposition that nearly came back to bite us in this one. Geelong has a fantastic structure. We play a very fast game, but we can, like any team who plays that style, you can get opened up going the other way, and especially Geelong has proven by handball. So we've got to do a little bit more structure, and I think this is on the coaches, not so much the players at the moment. The coaches need to look at a way that they can set up the field defensively behind the play. Good show name. Everyone go check it out. Go check it out on the Hoops Crew. How we can set up behind the play to ensure that the field is protected a little bit when we do go surging forward, because at the moment we are finding ourselves cut open a little bit the other way when we play this hyper-aggressive style that we played this weekend. It worked for us. We won by 43 points in the end. But there's weaknesses to that game that we need to look to try and address as soon as possible, ideally. Anyway, Cats fans, let me know what you think about Geelong's 43-point win against the Eagles. It was great to see that we had to fight hard for it. The Eagles are a better team than their ladder position suggests. They are developing nicely. They are starting to really refine their game and form a bit of DNA, which I think is really great for them considering the run of tough years that they've had. They're in an early stage of this development still, but it's really good to see. And they threw a few punches and landed a few. It was really impressive from the Eagles. Congratulations to them, but congratulations to Cats on winning by 43 points. Not the massive percentage boost that we would have liked, but it'll do the job. We've got a game against the Gold Coast this week, which is going to be mighty tough, fighting for 4th place on the ladder. Hopefully we can get the chocolates. Cats fans, like I said, let me know what you think in the comments section. Check us out on Patreon if you haven't already. That is patreon.com/thehoopscrew. You can sign up there. There's a 7-day free trial period and you'll get early access to content. There are exclusives and extended videos for you to check out from the Chaps Chat Cats. Myself, Ben does some stuff as well. Lots of good stuff for you to check out. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Chuck this video a like. Share it with your friends and family. Get more people tuning into all of the Hoops Crew content. You can find me on socials at Paul James Games. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And finally, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like I said, chuck it a like. Remain Geelong strong, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later.